Hey, it's your professional sarcastic man and seeker of attention, Chris, here with a video about the upcoming Detective Comics number 1000 variants and comparing them to the ones that Action Comics did. So from the 1930s to now, or as I refer to them as the decade variants, since, it's by tens, 30, 40, 50, etc. So Edward Brewer wanted me to do a video in this, and I thought, why not compare the two different covers? So we'll start off with the 1930s. Easy enough, it's by the same artist, Steve Rude. Steve Rude does Action Comics and Detective Comics number 1000, the covers, and they are the best of these decade variants. Just within this type of variant, they are honestly the best. The art, the detail, the coloring on them are amazing. They are both of those are my favorites out of the series. I don't know, it has this weird kind of, almost with Action Comics, it has almost an Alex Ross kind of feel to it with the coloring, and with but they both have this oddly like classic, almost movie poster feel to them, which is what I like about them most. With Superman, you just have these statues, these monuments crumbling around him, and he's holding them off with his own, with his super strength. And with Batman, you have Batman interrupting what attack by these two hooded figures on a woman. Lightning striking behind him, and with an overall shadowy Batman looking over all of it while the actual Batman is there. So both covers are really, really good. So on to the 40s. So for Action Comics, you had Michael Cho do the variant, and for Detective Comics, you have Bruce Timm. So for Michael Cho's one, I really like the look of it. So it's Superman on a battlefield. In a text box that says "Smash the Axis, buy war bonds and stamps." So 40s, around when World War II was happening. So it's a very World War II look to it. Kind of a propaganda artwork. Just Superman is doing his part as well. Superman is up fighting for America, for the people. So I like the look of the art and the coloring. It fits the times of the 40s very well. And for Detective Comics, 1940s one by Bruce Timm is actually a homage. It's an homage to Detective Comics number 69. Pause for 69 joke. So yes, it's a homage cover to that that cover, pretty much. And I really like it. It's just it doesn't really do anything different. It's just with a different art style, with Bruce Timm's art style. But I think it's still a really good cover by itself. So onto the 50s, you have Dave Gibbons variant for Action Comics, and you have Michael Cho doing the Detective Comics. So 1950s with Superman with Dave Gibbons. It's not bad, although I will say Superman's face looks a bit off. So you have Superman getting attacked by flying saucers. These saucer jockeys may be small, but their death rays sure pack a punch. He's too strong. Activate the kryptonite ray. And I was searching up on this with the 50s. I think this is when they really tried to go. They introduced like Brainiac, I believe so. Someone, if I'm wrong on that, correct me. Like more of the extraterrestrial side to Superman. So you got Brainiac, you got his origins, with like the Fortress of Solitude and all that. So that's what it's going with the cover. Art and coloring, not that bad. Michael Cho with the 1950s perfectly captures the silliness of the 50s. As you can tell with the cover, you have Batman and you have Robin surrounded by just different Batman in like different suits. So you have like a robot Batman, mummy Batman. You have the infamous rainbow suit Batman. So Michael Cho is able to perfectly capture the silliness of the 50s with that. So on to the 60s. You have Michael Allred with Action Comics, and you have Jim Steranko with Detective Comics. So with Michael's cover, not a bad cover. If I remember from this, looking up from the 60s, so you have Supergirl on the cover, you have Bizarro World on the cover as well. Those were things, worlds and people that were introduced with the 60s and Action Comics. So I'm assuming everything else as well. So you got like Candor, you have uh, you have Superman becoming a mermaid for some reason. So some key parts of like the 60s or key moments of the 60s are shown very well in the Action Comics cover. And with Jim Steranko, not a bad cover. So you have Batman on a rope, I'm guessing gliding off, swinging off on a rope, although upside down. Same with researching for the 60s, they tried to distance themselves from like what the 50s did, because Batman was very low on sales. Detective Comics was very low on sales from what I saw. So they try to make it more contemporary and more detective oriented. So I can see how Steranko kind of captures that a little bit with his cover. Not a bad cover. So now you have the 70s. So for Action Comics, Jim Steranko, and for Detective Comics, you have Bernie Wrightson. So with Steranko's cover, it's a very patriotic cover. You know, Superman flying up, holding the American flag. It arches around the tip of the tip of the staff to where the flag, the red and white, flying behind Superman, flowing behind Superman. So very patriotic. Superman, truth, justice in the American way. Steranko perfectly shows this with the 70s variant. And for Bernie Wrightson, you have Batman, overlooking, which I assume to be Gotham, with like a orange, a dark and orange background with the bat symbol in there. Almost looks like a face. And from 70s Batman, from what I read, they made bats to be more of like a grim, a dark avenger of sorts. Wrightson kind of gets it with that cover, not really a lot. It's just seems more like just Batman being Batman, but not a bad cover regardless. So on to the 80s, you have Joshua Middleton with Action Comics and Frank Miller with Detective Comics. So with Middleton with the 80s, very bright, very kind of stylized. So you have a Brainiac in the background, a skeletal-looking Brainiac in the background, and you have Lex's Warsuit. From what I looked up, the 80s is where that's introduced, the Lex's Warsuit, and not a bad cover overall. Then you have Frank Miller's Detective Comics one, of course. For the 80s, Dark Knight Returns, year one. I was about to say year zero. No, year one, both done by Frank Miller, both iconic Batman stories from those times. So of course, you're gonna have the Dark Knight Returns Batman there with Robin there. So not a bad cover. Not the biggest fan of Miller's art style, but it's not a bad cover. So onto the 90s, you have Dan Jurgens with Action Comics variant, and you have Tim Sale with Detective Comics. Very fitting for Jurgens to do the 90s one. That's when his time came for for Superman, especially with the iconic Death of Superman storyline. If I remember correctly, that's also when Superman revealed that he's Clark, or when Clark Kent revealed he was Superman to Lois. So you have the both of them on the cover. No, Superman, Clark removing his clothes to show the symbol underneath, his suit underneath. Lois by his side, looking like she's also helping him. So very good cover. Sales, not bad. The face looks a bit off, to me. The art and coloring, I have no problem with. The face, I think it's just the angle of it looks a bit weird, but it's not a bad cover. So you go into the 2000s, you have Lee Bermejo with Action Comics, and you have Jock with Detective Comics. So I don't know if it's just me, but Superman looks considerably younger in this variant, and that could be because with the 2000s you had stories like Birthright and Secret Origins, which added or retold like Superman's origins, or like his early years as a superhero, or even becoming a superhero. So if that's intentional, that Superman looks younger to represent that, Bermejo did a great job. And also during that time in the 2000s, I think he did the art for Lex Luthor Man of Steel, a Superman story from Lex's point of view. So pretty good. Really like that cover. And it almost looks like Superman offering his hand out to help. He's above everyone, but he's there to help. He's not this god wanting to be worshipped. So, and Jock's variant, it's just Batman's face and rain falling across it. Honestly, out of all of these covers and just out of the Detective Comic decade variants, this is the weakest. It's just his face. I've seen Jock's covers. Jock does really good covers with Batman, ranging from average to good to really good. And was honestly this the best that he did, or they have him do? Just Batman's face with rain falling down the left side. It's honestly the weakest of all the covers. And then there is no, if I remember correctly, there is no 2010s one for Action Comics, but there is one for Detective Comics, and you have it's a Greg Capullo cover. Very fitting. He did the art for Batman alongside Scott Snyder. Very iconic duo for the 2010s for Batman. Not really that much with Detective Comics. I know Snyder did actually do Detective Comics before New 52 happened, but primarily known for Batman. So, but it is 80 years of Batman the character. Not particularly 80 years of Detective Comics. Oh no, maybe in a way kind of. It is 1,000 issues, but mainly 80 years of Batman. So, of course, the most iconic artist for Batman during the 2010s, Greg Capullo. Not a bad cover. Kind of wish there was a bit more to the background instead of just the white, but it's not a bad cover overall. So also, I would do a video about store exclusive, but there's just so goddamn many of them. Jesus Christ, there are so many variants for the store exclusives, but what I can talk about is the one that my store has. So the comic book store I go to, they have their own variant by Stuart McKinney, if I remember the artist's name correctly. Stuart McKinney, I believe it is. And it has, I know a few of these store exclusive have these, like Batman's not really on the cover, but it's Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, and Catwoman, some iconic Batman villains. So I will take a point off for the fact that there's a surprising a lot of no Batman on this cover, but it's a good cover nonetheless. I like the art and the coloring. I wish there was a bit more to the background instead of it just a white background, but from what I heard, it's not the final, might not be the final piece. Even if it is, I'm okay with it, but I wish there was a bit more to the white background. But I like the whole, with this one, with the store exclusive one for my one, the Comics Etc. store exclusive, them in like Charlie's Angel poses. Yeah, it's nice. It's a good little reference between the for the three characters. And oddly enough, for some reason, I feel like Poison Ivy, she looks similar to Rose Byrne, the actress Rose Byrne. I don't know if the Stewart modeled her as such or it's just a coincidence, but there's a nice little thing I saw and thought of. So yeah, that's the one that I'll be getting from my store. And they are doing a signing a couple of days afterwards. I'm hoping I can get there to get it signed by Stuart McKinney, hopefully. I haven't had a comic signed before. The opportunity has shown itself, so hopefully I can take it. But that is all for this video. Thank you all for watching. I'll see you all next time.